Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Allison and this is episode 12 of my knitting podcast. It has once again been a bit of time since I uploaded my last video. Please forgive me, I'm definitely a little bit out of practice, but the weather's cooling down. It's currently snowing right now, so I thought what better time to get cozy with my coffee and show off a little bit of what I've been knitting for the last few months. Unfortunately, this break that I took was for the same reason as the break I took earlier this year. I will just put a little trigger warning disclaimer here that I'm going to touch very briefly on miscarriage, pregnancy loss. Won't harp on too much about it, but just to kind of give some context for where I've been. And yeah, so anyone who watches my videos might remember that I experienced a miscarriage earlier this year, back in the spring. Unfortunately, it did happen for a second time this year, back at the start of October. I was 12 weeks when I found out, 13 weeks when I miscarried. And it's something that this has consumed my entire life for the last 7 or so months. But it's something that I've started to be a little bit more vocal about, and I have found some comfort in sharing my story and have had many people on social media or in real life come to me and you know share their experiences. And I know that sharing and hearing stories from other people has helped to make me feel less alone and less like the entire world is falling apart. So I hope that my sharing also does the same for other people who have maybe experienced a similar tragedy, I suppose. I'm feeling better now. It's up and down. It really is something that you don't get over. You just learn to live with the grief. And I think anybody who has experienced any type of grief will understand that feeling. Physically, I'm feeling much better at this point, but it's just the grieving of what I thought my future was going to look like, what I thought this year and next year were going to look like, and the loss of something that I really want very deeply. But with that said, it sort of ties a little bit into the first knitting project that I'm going to share, my first finished object. So I'll just jump in and talk about that one right now. So if you watched my fall knitting plans video, the most recent video that I've uploaded on this channel, I talked about wanting to knit the Yun sweater by November Knits. I think most people are probably familiar with the pattern at this point. It is a raglan stockinette sweater with a really dramatic split hem and ribbing down at the bottom. This is a pattern that I've actually had in my library for quite some time. Purchased the yarn for it probably close to a year ago now from KnitPicks, and just kept sort of putting it off, and decided that this fall it was going to be part of my plans because I figured that a sweater with this sort of shape was very accommodating for a changing body and a changing, growing midsection. So I thought, what better time than now to knit that sweater? Unfortunately, I experienced what I experienced this year, and out of spite decided I didn't want to knit this sweater anymore. I wanted nothing to do with it anymore because of the associations that it had in my head. Even though I do still like the pattern, one day I'm sure I'll knit it. I just couldn't bring myself to do that right now. But I had the urge to just cast on something new and quick and stockinette. A lot of what I've been working on lately has been cabled and textured, so I really just wanted a quick project that I could cast on and bang out really quick and be wearing within a month. And I really loved that brown yarn that I had purchased for the Yun sweater. So I decided we're scrapping the Yun. We are going to cast on a pattern that I've already made before that I love. So I took that yarn and I cast on another Louvre sweater by PetiteKnit. I will, of course, include some photos and videos so you can see this a little better than just me holding it up like that. So this cast on, like I said, was fairly impulsive. And for that reason, it didn't come out the way that I had hoped. I was a little bit silly, and I guess my head and my heart weren't fully in it, so I kind of just decided to cast on, and that's what happens, but it's okay. Like I said, I have knit this pattern before. I believe it was 2 years ago. I knit it out of Swish from KnitPicks, Swish DK, I believe, which is a superwash merino, very soft. It's the yarn that I always recommend for gift knitting if you're not sure how your recipient will react with wool. It's a really soft, nice, fluffy wool. And this is that sweater. So looks a lot like the Louvre I just held up. This one I made somewhat cropped, but it still fits me how I typically like my sweaters to fit. But when it came to casting on my second version, I was really drawn to the sample photos that PetiteKnit has on her website and on Ravelry, where it's a little bit more oversized. I also think that comes with the fact that the pattern is written for a worsted weight yarn, and I used a DK for this. But I just kind of wanted a bigger feel overall. I really wanted just like a cozy, oversized sweater. So instead of going up one size in the pattern size and knitting a large instead of a medium, and instead of upping my needle size one as well, I just cast on exactly the same as I did with this one. I had tried this on prior to casting on my new brown one and was like, oh, I actually really do enjoy how this one fits. It does have a bit of oversizedness to it. Let me just do exactly what I did with this one. I also didn't take great notes on this sweater. I've really tried to up my note-taking game in Ravelry in the last year or so, and I could not for the life of me remember if I had knit this on 4 or 4.5 millimeter needles. The pattern calls for 4. I still have a hunch that I may have used 4.5 on this. I was not really able to tell just from measuring and like comparing the sweaters, but overall it does look like these stitches have a little bit more space and the gauge is a little larger. All that to say, clearly I was not in my right mind. I tried this on, I enjoyed how it fit, and I thought, oh, if I just knit the same size with the same needles, I'll get the same effect on my second version. Only when I was halfway through knitting this did I actually stop and realize, oh, but this is a different kind of yarn. So this is a worsted weight, but this is a non-superwash wool. This is the KnitPicks wool of the Andes, the worsted version. And as a result, because it is a non-superwash, it doesn't have the same sort of stretchiness as the superwash does. The superwash is definitely softer. It, you know, it expanded quite a bit more with blocking than this one did. As a result, it also pills quite a bit, which I have not yet noticed with my new one, so that is a benefit. But yeah, I think only once I had cast off the body did I realize, oh wait, this yarn is not going to react to blocking and to wear the same way that my previous Louvre did. So I sort of just resigned myself to the fact that this was probably going to still have a cropped fit and still be a little bit more fitted, which, don't get me wrong, I love the fit of this. I'm actually quite happy with it. I had considered for a little bit undoing the whole thing and then going back and starting over from scratch, bigger size, bigger needles. But I do really love how this fits. And I cast this off 2 weeks ago and I've worn it probably 3 or 4 days a week for the last 2 weeks. So clearly I love it very much. And I know that it's quickly becoming a wardrobe staple that I will wear for years to come. But it's not exactly the oversized fit that I wanted, which is fine. I have other oversized sweaters, and I'm sure I will knit more oversized sweaters in the future. I love the fit of my original Louvre, so having this one that is quite similar is, fine by me. It just goes to show that I really was not in my right knitting mind while making decisions for this, but that's okay. One thing I did modify with this one that I didn't do with my original one, and that I've actually been wanting to try for a while and have never done on any of my garments thus far, is knitting my ribbing inside out. So I cast on the neckline and I started knitting in the round like normal. And then before jumping right into the stockinette German short row section, I just did a really quick German short row turn so that the wrong side became the right side, and then I continued with the stockinette. And I do think overall that it lended itself to like a fairly neater ribbing. I've noticed, and I know others have noticed as well, that their ribbing can sometimes look a little bit messy. Excuse the little end sticking out here. Um, but it always looks a little nicer on the inside when knitting in the round. So I do think that that added just like a bit of a polished touch to it. I especially notice it on the cuffs here. I think that they look really neat as opposed to on the inside where they're just a little bit more lumpy and bumpy, which again is totally fine. It's not something that I think any normal person would notice. I, as a knitter, just notice it. But it does really just add a nice little finish and polish to the sweater and sort of makes it look store-bought, which again is not always the goal. But I do really like the finishings. And I really love this color. I've been very into brown lately. I've been wearing a lot of brown, and this is my first brown knitted garment. And now that my hair is a little bit darker, a little darker than I wanted, that's okay. I definitely feel like it looks nice with this brown color. So overall, I'm very pleased with this garment. Again, not what I wanted, but hey, I've been wearing it a ton, so clearly I really am enjoying it. One more thing I will add about this sweater is that for the first time ever, I timed myself from start to finish for this garment. I was inspired by Michaela from Stitches and Stem, as well as Katie from Katie Snooks, who I've seen both fairly recently timing start to finish how long it takes them to knit up a garment. And I was really curious, and people ask me sometimes, and I have not a single clue. So this took way longer than I expected. I think I went into this project assuming that this would maybe take me 30 hours or so. It's just stockinette. There's nothing crazy about it. It's very mindless. Um, but it's not the loosest gauge. It's worsted weight on a 4mm. So, it's not gonna fly like a sweater on like an 8mm needle would. This took me 45 and a half hours, 45 hours and 25 minutes to be precise. But yeah, I was sort of amazed by that. Um, I, with each change of a new ball of yarn, I sort of took a screenshot of my phone timer to see like how I had progressed with each one. So I might turn that into a little reel for my Instagram. We'll see if I'm able to pull that off. But yeah, 45 hours on this. I think just the neck ribbing alone was like something like 7 hours, which was so much more than I had ever expected. So it is really amazing to see the amount of work and effort that goes into our knitted garments. And like, if this took me 45 hours, I don't even want to know how long some of my next more textured projects have taken. But yeah, it makes me feel just even more proud of my knits. My first whip that I'm going to share today, you've seen a million times if you've watched my videos, but I finally feel like we're in the home stretch now. And it is very tangled. I should have done this before. My husband's Moby Sweater Man by PetiteKnit. This is a behemoth at this point. My husband is 6'3", so a little taller than the models that these patterns are usually knitted for. I find myself extending the body far beyond where she suggests to, but that's okay. I'm happy to have been able to have him try it on like probably 20 times at this point just to make sure that the fit is perfect. And so I believe the last time I updated, I was still working on the body. I have since bound off the body, and overall I'm really happy with the fit of it. I'm knitting a size small for him, which was the size recommended based on his chest measurements. I definitely think I could have gone up to a medium and it would have still looked good on him. He tends to wear sweaters that are a little bit more fitted anyway, so I think this is going to look just fine on him. And with blocking, I also stretched out the body a bit. But I think a medium could have also worked. I do like the look of a little bit more of a baggy sweater on him, but I'll include a photo of how this is looking so far on him, just the blocked body portion. And I have also gotten quite a bit of progress on the first sleeve. Now the body is blocked, the sleeve is not, as you might be able to tell. The cables here look a little bit messy. I know I had a couple people comment on a previous video of mine saying that they thought I was twisting my cables the wrong way. They're all going in the same direction, but I do see that like some of them are just not as neat as the others. And I think that that definitely was fixed for the most part with blocking. There's still one that looks a little bit funky here, but I promise they're all going in the right direction. So this sleeve was a little bit of trial and error. I blocked the body first, so that might have contributed to, the armhole being a little bit more stretched out and relaxed. But I followed the pickup rate recommended by PetiteKnit in the pattern, and following that rate, I ended up with 100 stitches, which I believe is the amount for the extra, extra large. And this is a small. I think I was supposed to have somewhere in the 70s, and I was picking up 100, and I did it twice, and it was still following that rate. I got 100. So I did try to knit a few inches with the 100 stitch circumference, had my husband try it on, and as I suspected, the sleeve was just far too wide, and it looked quite silly proportionately to the more fitted body. So I decided to rip back twice. Picked up again, but I used a slightly different pickup rate. I think I picked up 2 for every 3 instead of 3 for every 4, something like that, and ended up with the correct number of stitches for the size medium, which I figured is close enough to the small. I'll just go for it. I didn't want to pick up too few stitches and have this really cinch in and get smaller because it was fitting him nicely. So I went with that medium size stitch count, and I've been having him try it on throughout the process and as I decrease, just to make sure the sleeve is still fitting him nicely. And so far it is. So I'm really happy with that. And now that all that trial and error is done, hopefully picking up and knitting the second sleeve will be a lot quicker. But yeah, the sleeve is going by quite a bit faster than the body did. There's no lattice portion in the center here, which is not necessarily all that time consuming, but it definitely is a bit quicker on the sleeve, just having to worry about having this part be in pattern and the rest is just double moss stitch, so it's quite mindless. I don't remember the decrease rate recommended in the pattern. I believe it varies by size, which makes sense. What I decided to do was just to decrease every row that I'm twisting the cable. And I chose to do that just because I thought it would be easier to remember rather than having to remember, okay, I'm cabling on row X and then I have to do the decreases on row Y and remember that with every round. I figured it was just easier to decrease every time I'm doing a little cable twist. And so far that's been working well for me. The fit is really nice. I'm at the point now where I think I will probably only do 1 or maybe 2 more decreases and then just knit straight for the rest of the way before doing the ribbing. But like I said, I'm having him try it on like every other day at this point to make sure that it fits him nice, because I'm not putting this much effort into this sweater just to have it not fit him. Like I said, if my Louvre took 45 hours, I can only imagine this has probably taken like close to 100 so far. I cast this on in February, for those who might remember. I did take a bit of a break in the spring from knitting this, but now that it's fall coming into the Christmas season, I really do want this to be ready for him for the holidays. So I told him hopefully by like the second weekend of December, sometime like first, second week. It really is like at the point where it's becoming mindless for me. So I think we are on track. Hopefully by the next podcast episode, this is a finished object. But yeah, I'm really proud of how this has turned out so far. I'm proud of myself for, getting through this never-ending body. And really excited for him to finally have a hand knitted cable sweater from me. I've knit him a stockinette sweater, but this will be a nice addition to his wardrobe that, yeah, I'm really proud of. The second and final whip I'm going to share today is my Dagmar. This is another PetiteKnit pattern. I'm so sorry. I do typically tend to try and knit from a variety of designers. I do have two whips that are sort of on ice right now from two completely different designers. But when I just need something that I know is going to fit nicely, for example, for my husband, I know that PetiteKnit's men's patterns are reliable. I've knit them for him before. And then the Louvre is a pattern I already had in my library. When it comes to basics, she really knows what she's doing. And, you know, I love the fit of my original Louvre, so I wanted to knit another one. I know I don't really need to explain myself with that, but just little disclaimer. So the Dagmar, another project that I've been talking about knitting for a while. I purchased this yarn back in February from Knitting for Olive. It was a very big, exciting purchase for me because I had never ordered a full sweater quantity of Merino and Mohair from Knitting for Olive before, but this was going to be a really special project. I wanted to knit the Dagmar jacket. I've since changed my mind a little bit on this pattern. I really loved the idea of having the Dagmar jacket as like a fall spring transitional outerwear piece that was also like a cozy sweater I could wear inside. That was when I had originally planned to cast this on back in like the spring and have it done for this fall, which clearly it was not. And then the more I had thought about it and the more I was knitting on the Moby for my husband, the more I was kind of thinking I would really love a full all over cable sweater for myself. And I've knit some in the past. I made the Ingrid, which is not really cable, it's just all over texture. And I made another seamed cable sweater like years and years and years ago with acrylic yarn that I no longer wear. So I decided I was going to slightly change course because I had already started the Dagmar jacket and I was like, I'm just going to do the Dagmar sweater instead. I think this is a little bit more versatile that I can wear throughout the fall, winter, spring. Not that I couldn't wear the jacket throughout like the winter. I just think that the sweater has a better chance of like fitting under some of my winter coats than the jacket would have if I was wearing it open. Anyway, I'm very excited about the prospect of having a Dagmar sweater. So I was able to keep all the progress that I had made and just continue with the same chart because it's essentially the same sweater. And this is what I have so far. And you know what? It looks even better on camera than it does in person, which really is getting me really excited to continue progressing on this. So for this pattern and for basically all PetiteKnit patterns, the medium is my recommended size. For this one, I decided to go up to a large because this time I wanted an oversized sweater and I made it happen. I think originally I had planned to knit the medium, but for the large, all I needed to do was add a few more increase rows. So that was what I did. So far, I'm really liking, like this is how the width of the back will be. So I think once blocked, it's going to be a nice oversized chunky fit, which is really nice. Like I mentioned, I'm knitting this out of Knitting for Olive. I'm using the soft silk mohair and the heavy merino, both in the color Marzipan, which is like an off-white sort of, I guess, cream-ish color, but I think against my skin tone, it looks like a nice like white neutral color. I know I've mentioned in the past that like I tend to steer clear of beiges or knit very sparingly with beiges because I don't like to have a garment that is the exact same color as my skin tone. I think this is a nice color on me, hopefully. So yeah, I don't really have too much to report. Anyone who has seen my previous podcast episode will know that I made a very slight modification here. Inside these diamonds is meant to be just purl stitches like in the surrounding blank spaces here. Instead, I opted to just do a seed stitch similar to what's on the side here. I just think it adds a little bit of visual interest. And yeah, I just like how that looks. One thing that I'm a little bit frustrated about, and this is very likely just an issue with me and my tension, but I'm finding just next to these faux cable sections here, my stitches are quite gapy and wide. I don't know if that's coming across super well on camera, but here you can sort of tell it's a little bit wider. And I think from the back it's easier to tell as well that these stitches here are quite loose. And I'm trying to tighten up my tension when I cross this part to sort of avoid that. Um, but yeah, I think overall it's, not the end of the world. And I think once blocked, hopefully everything will even out. But if you have any tips to avoid that, like here, I think you can see that this looks just a little messy. If you have any tips on how to avoid that, maybe I need to like knit or purl through the back loop. Is that something that could potentially tighten up the stitch a little bit? Uh, please let me know because I would love to try it out. It's, like I said, not the end of the world, but I think I would like for this to look as neat as possible so that the cables really jump out. So yeah, any advice is welcome. I'm also really loving how this honeycomb is knitting up. It's my first time doing honeycomb, and yes, it is extremely time consuming, but I think it's rewarding seeing how that is turning out. And yeah, they're just kind of fun to like stick your fingers in. I don't know. I've been having a lot of fun knitting this up and watching it grow. And now that I'm past the point of doing increases, I've sort of hit a bit of a flow state where I've more or less memorized the chart. So I can just very easily bang out a few rows on this and feel like I've made a lot of progress watching the pattern come together. So like I mentioned, I do have two other whips that are on ice. I have my Sabai sweater by Suzanne Mueller, and I have my Paul cardigan by PetiteKnit. The Sabai sweater, I think I will be saving more for like a spring into summer knit, since it is knit on it's a fingering weight yarn. It's quite a fine garment. I think that'll be really nice for the springtime. And the Paul cardigan, I would ideally like to take out of hibernation once I've finished with the Moby. And maybe I can try to finish it before the end of the year. I've seen a lot of people talking about going into 2026 whipless and being able to, start fresh. I don't know that that's totally possible for me because I don't think I will finish everything I have before then. And I do have a few gifts I'd like to knit for Christmas. But I think it could be nice to try at least to put as much time as possible into those whips and get some good progress on them. And then early on in the year, maybe January, February, I can start casting on more things. I do, however, have some plans, some acquisitions. So I will jump in and share those now. My first plan is a sad plan. It's mending a hole. I don't know if this was a moth hole. This sweater is stored with all of me and my husband's knitwear, and nothing else had holes from what I could tell, knock on wood. But the Hansholm sweater that I mentioned before that I knitted for him a couple of years back had a tiny little hole, very, very small. Um, but I want to try my hand at mending it because obviously he can't wear it as is. It really only is like one row that is sort of interrupted. So it's probably not too difficult of a job, but I do want to make sure I'm doing a good job and having it look really neat and finished so you can't tell that there was ever a hole. So I do have a little bit of this yarn left over. Thankfully, I was knitting some of this into my excavation blanket, which is a long-term whip that I've got going. And I'm getting sort of toward the end of it. So I think from here on out, I will stop using this color in the blanket and keep it in case I ever need to do any more mending on this sweater. But that is sort of a high priority. This sweater has kind of just been like draped on the back of one of our chairs for the past month because I keep saying I'm going to do it. And then I get too caught up in knitting on my Moby and this gets put on the back burner. But I think it should be a fairly quick job. So maybe one Sunday afternoon when we're at home watching football or something, I can quickly bang this out. Another plan I would really like, and I do actually have the yarn here for it. I have two very close friends who had babies in October. One of them, it was her first, so she ended up having a baby shower back in August, and so I knitted a sweater. I shared that on the podcast. It was the Storm Sweater Baby for her son, and I gifted that to her back in the summer. My other friend, she had her second son right at the end of October. October, obviously not a good month for me, and I didn't have it in me to knit baby knits or think about baby knits at all. But you know, this is my best friend and her oldest son. I think I made him like 4 different knitwear pieces when he was born. So I really wanted this new baby to have one of his own as well. Even though he can wear his brother's hand-me-downs, I think it's special to have one that's just for you. So I do have this KnitPicks stroll in the color Midnight, I believe, Midnight Heather, that I am planning to use on a sweater for him. I'm not going to talk too much more about it because I know that she sometimes tunes into these videos, but it's going to be a nice blue sweater and I'm really excited for that. That is likely the next cast on that I will have once I finish with the Moby sweater. It's a baby sweater. It's going to be very, very quick. I want him to be able to wear it this winter. He's currently 1 month old, so I'm probably going to aim for like a 3 to 6 month size, so it really shouldn't take all that long to knit up. But yeah, I think I finally have it in me to cast on some baby knits, and we'll see, you know, how that goes. But yeah, that's hopefully going to be the next cast on. When it comes to Christmas gift knitting, I'm not overcommitting this year because I do that every year and I never have anything finished on time. The one request that I received was from my mom. She would like a hooded scarf, and those hood scarf patterns were very, very popular last year. So there are a ton to choose from. I think I'm leaning toward the Alex hood, which is a Knitting for Olive pattern. But I'm still deciding. I know my mom also watches these videos, so I won't talk too much more about that. But I hope to have that ready for her, maybe not by Christmas, but at least in time to wear throughout the rest of the winter. It's usually worst here in Canada, or in Montreal at least, around January, February. So she could have it for that time. That would be awesome. And lastly, my brother-in-law and his family are coming from France for Christmas in a couple weeks, which is really exciting. And so I would like to knit hat for my nephew and for my future niece, who is not yet born. They live in the south of France, so wool sweaters are not always super necessary for them. I have knit sweaters in the past out of wool for my nephew. Not sure if he gets much wear out of them. It's very warm most of the year there. But I know that they do a lot of hiking and trips to the Alps, and he's always wearing hats. So I think I will knit a nice beanie for him and also for his future sister. And I'm planning to go later today through some of my yarn scraps and see what I've got that I can use. He is 3.5, so not a huge head to knit for, and then the other one would be a baby size. So I'm sure I have plenty of yarn that I can choose from to try and put something together for them. The next project I would like to cast on for myself is the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta. I've talked about this before. I plan on using this yarn. It is a bright red palette yarn from KnitPicks. I'm really excited to have a really nice bright red sweater in my collection. I don't see myself casting that on until the new year, but you never know. Maybe a nice Christmas Day cast on could be fun. But yeah, I am really excited for that, but I am trying to prioritize the stuff that I've got going for my husband and all of the gift knits right now. So TBD. But yeah, hopefully soon. For acquisitions, I have 2 things to share today. I have not purchased too much yarn in the last little bit. I've been really good. I'm knitting from stash mostly, which is, I'm very proud. I did, however, want to buy a souvenir skein. At the start of this month, my sister turned 30. She lives in Halifax, so my mom and I went to visit her and celebrate with her for her birthday. And while I was there, we stopped really quickly by the yarn store Fia Fia, and I wanted to get some yarn. I initially was looking at a sweater quantity of Drops Lima for a specific pattern I've wanted to knit forever. Didn't end up taking it because I was flying home with a carry-on and I just didn't have the space. I've since ordered that yarn from them, and that is on its way to me, but it's not here yet. So I'll share that in the next episode. But while I was there, I wanted to get a skein that was a nice reminder souvenir of the Maritimes and of our trip out there. So I picked up this skein from Lichen and Lace. This is a New Brunswick yarn company, or it's dyed in New Brunswick. So not Nova Scotia. I probably could have gotten a Nova Scotia yarn, but I really just loved this color scheme. Very Christmassy, lots of red and pink and sort of a dark green. This shade is called Acadian Forest. And this is an 80-20 sock, so 80% machine washable organic merino and 20% recycled nylon. I'm not really a sock knitter. I'm also not a little small scarf knitter or wearer. So I've been trying to rack my brain about what I can knit with this really nice souvenir skein. I'm in no rush to get it cast on into anything, but I am curious to know, what do you guys like to do with a single skein of sock yarn? I could try and knit socks, honestly. I think Christmas socks could be really cute in this, and then maybe do like a contrast cuff and heel and toe. But I've also never actually knit socks before. I cast on a pair for my husband last year and quickly decided they were too big, unraveled them, and never started again. But if you have any ideas of what to do with a single skein, I'm all ears, open to any suggestions. Like I said, I'm not usually a little scarf wearer, but who knows? I was thinking maybe this could even be nice as like a contrast color in a color work piece or something. I don't know how that would look with like the, the variegation and like the color pooling and whatnot. But yeah, I thought that was really beautiful and a nice little souvenir from my trip to go see my sister. I also almost forgot to share this. I just had to run and grab them. But when I was in Halifax, my sister gave me a little gift because I was sort of going through a hard time and she wanted to cheer me up. She had purchased these buttons for me. They are sheep buttons, handmade. Aren't they just the cutest little things? So 4 of the same white sheep and then this black sheep here. I just thought these would be such cute little statement buttons on like a really simple stockinette cardigan. So I don't have any project immediately in mind for this right now, but I want to make sure I'm saving it for a really special project. They're just so cute. I've never used really like out there buttons like this before, but I just think they're so cute. And yeah, it was really sweet that she thought of me and picked these up for me. So I'm really excited to incorporate those into something soon. And the very last thing I'm going to share quickly today is a gift that I received. So yesterday, as of recording this, today is the 28th of November. Yesterday was my birthday. And so my mom got me something that I had been having my eye on for quite some time. And it's my very first pattern book, and it is Knits to Wear by Veronica Lindberg, aka Kutova Kika. When she was putting this book together, I follow her YouTube channel, so I was watching sort of the process of this. This was the first knitting book that I had seen that had like many patterns that I really was like, wow, I could see myself knitting and wearing that. I mean, the title, Knits to Wear, I think the whole point of this book was that she wanted to put together a collection of really like wearable, versatile pieces. And it's just a gorgeous book. So, like I said, I've had my eye on it for a while. Sometimes I find it hard to justify purchasing a pattern book because they can tend to be a little bit expensive. But when you break it down and realize that, a single pattern can sometimes cost $10, $12, $13, whereas this book, I think, was somewhere in the 70s, but it has 17 patterns in it, which is just a really great value. And like I said, many of these I can see myself knitting. So we had seen this book when we were at Fia in Halifax, and my mom took a photo because I had said that I really want it, and she got it for me for my birthday. So I'm so grateful. I cannot wait to jump into this. I don't have any immediate plans yet, but I want to share just a few of my favorite patterns from this book. So this one is the Simple Things sweater, and it's just a very simple drop shoulder stockinette sweater, but I think it's so beautiful, and I really loved the oversized fit on her, and I just think that would be so nice and cozy. This one is my favorite, and I saw, obviously, while she was posting the process of taking the photos for the book and putting the book together, but what really pushed me to wanting to knit this for myself was seeing Sarah from Two Pearls in a Pod, who knit this as well, and her version is just gorgeous. But this is the Playful Palette sweater, and it is a circular yoke colorwork sweater. Super, super fluffy looking. I think it's knit with like one strand of wool and two strands of mohair, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, no, the sample is knit using Santa's Garden Sunday held with a Knitting for Olive silk mohair. I think Sarah from Two Pearls in a Pod might be the one who did one strand of wool and two strands of mohair. I will double check that. But just such a beautiful colorwork sweater. And I've knit one colorwork circular yoke sweater before, the Lumi pullover last year by Sarah Nordland. And it fit me a lot better than I had anticipated. And so I've really been wanting to knit more. And I think this is going to be my next one. I really like this stockinette beanie, the Chloe. Really nice. She also has a cabled beanie in here that is gorgeous. Like, look, this one strap, one shoulder tank top. How fun is that? Oh my gosh. Okay, yes, this is the cabled hat. Twist it. Oh, look. Oh man. Yeah, so I can totally see myself knitting quite a few of these. They're like really nice basics. This stripy cardigan as well. Super nice. And I think that's knit up in garter stitch is what it looks like, or at least some of the stripes are knit in garter. So anyway, needless to say, I'm super excited about my first knitting book. Really thoughtful of my mom to remember me saying that I wanted this and then getting it for me. It's fun to physically own some patterns instead of just having them all digitally. I know sometimes it can be difficult with the charts. There are quite a few patterns in this book that use charts, either cables or colorwork, but I can always just photocopy them or take a photo. It's really not a big deal. And yeah, I'm super excited to jump into that book. So that is all I have. Thank you so much for tuning in and for bearing with me. I think this was a little bit rocky as I'm sort of finding my footing again, but I have had a lot that I've been wanting to talk about, and I'm really glad I got to come on and share. I do have a few video ideas for the end of this year into the new year, which I'm excited about. So hopefully I'll be getting those done soon, and keep an eye out for them. And yeah, I don't want to promise that I'm going to update more on my Instagram than I do here, because I say that often and then I kind of disappear from Instagram. But I'm trying to share a little bit more about my life on there in general. So hopefully you will tune in. Same name on Instagram as I have here, just with a dot in between. So it's amw.knits. And yeah, I hope to see you on Instagram and here. Please let me know what you're working on right now. I am very curious, as always. Do you have any knits that you're really frantically trying to finish before the end of the year? Are you trying to clear your needles? Is that something I should be doing too? Let me know. I don't know if it's possible, but I can try my best. And yeah, I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.